Hello there, motorcyclist or YouTuber. If you like to enjoy working on your motorcycle, here's a video of me working on my Honda Shadow 750. I am attempting to remove the fins off the side of the head of the motor, and you use a hex tool to remove the hex bolts. There's only 4 of them on each side of the head of the motorcycle. So there's one side of the fins, the heat fins, and there's this other side. This is the front side that I'm removing. You notice that I don't have the airbox and the carburetor and all that stuff because I did a different video on removing that component as far as the carburetor and exhaust. But anyways, here's the 2 fins. You see on the right side I screwed back or actually that's where the airbox would stay in place. There's that screw, and then there's this other bracket that goes on the fin and then a bolt, but I removed that since I'm not going to be using that. So you'll remove your spark plug cable and then just proceed by removing the other hex bolts. Pretty simple. Then you go to the other side, the front side, to remove the other fin. And there we go. So right here I'm showing the rear cylinder of the motorcycle. It was having a leak issue. I went inside of the valve cover and adjusted my valves. So that's why I am doing this process. I need to change out my valve cover gasket. So there's that. You remove the 2 spark plug wires. Move those out of the way. And move anything else like that hose if you have it. If not, don't worry about it. Now that everything's out of the way, I'm going to proceed to remove the radiator cap and start draining the coolant afterwards. And then we go in the underbelly of the motorcycle, and you'll find a bolt that looks similar to this, and that's where your water pump is, I believe. But that's where I usually drain my coolant from. So just remove that one bolt, and you should see all that coolant squirmish out. Now we move up to the thermostat, which you'll remove the 10mm bolts. Well, 1 bolt for the ground, and then the housing has 2 8mm bolts. And then you have a hose that goes to the front of the engine, which is a Phillips screw, or I believe a 6 or an 8 socket. But now you just unplug the sensor for the thermostat, I believe. Just start by unscrewing that bolt. Now I show a different angle here so you can get into the thermostat bracket, it's a little tricky, so I used a 8mm wrench to try to get it out of there first. Saved you the time, so you don't have to watch me struggle. So now I start to remove, I believe it's a secondary air filtration or some sort of contraption for the carburetor. It's that little black box, has two hoses coming out of it. It's right above the valve cover and right below the thermostat, which gets in the way of moving stuff around. So I started by pulling off that hose, and that little box of mine is broken, so you might have yours intact, not like mine, but it still stays in place. So now that that's removed, we'll start off back at removing the hose clamp from the hose to give you a little more slack. Now I go back to the housing of the thermostat and remove the right-sided bolt. So once that's removed, you'll notice you get your gasket from your thermostat housing, which mine is shot, and I need to replace that as well because I was getting a leak from there as too. So you'll notice how the thermostat was inside of the housing. It had a little circle facing that one hose out, so the main hose that goes out to the back one. And you'll notice you have a little bit of coolant in there still, so dump that out. Now I go back to the back side of the motorcycle and I remove the hose clamp from that end. It's a little tricky to pull those hoses out, but they come out pretty easy. Now I'm working on the valve cover breather vent. Remove it by using an 8mm wrench. So you have 3 bolts. Normally what I usually do is just unscrew them all the way the most I can and just leave them in place, because there really isn't much room for you to move your screws out when you're trying to pull it all out. So I just unscrew them all 3 at the same time and then just wait until you give it a little give and you should be able to pull that out. So see here, I just leave the bolts inside and I just maneuver them out of place. Just pull it all out at the same time. And then you want to replace this gasket that I removed. So now we go to the front of the engine, where I'll start by removing the 10mm bolts from the valve cover, and then you should just be able to pop it out, come right out. Now I just go ahead and show you how I removed the gasket. Mine was pretty old and brittle, so you can tell it's really hard. So what I did was used a pick or a screw driver, something that'll help you pull that out. You'll notice that mine has like a lot of gunk. I don't know if that's from oil buildup or something else. But I went ahead and cleaned that out afterwards with a brass brush just to make sure there was a good fitting between the new gasket and the valve cover. Yeah, it's all icky. So just went ahead, cleaned that out a little bit just to get a good surface coverage. And then I went to the engine and I started cleaning that up too because it had some grime on it just with the razor. But now I'll go to the back side, same process. Remove the 2 bolts from the back. And voila. Should be able to pull that out pretty easy. And this was the side that was giving me problems of oil leaks. So if you want to get to your valve adjustment, it's right there. And I just do the same process, just went ahead and took out the old gasket, cleaned it up, and here are the new ones. The part number, if you need it, comes with a set, so very useful. Now I did get a different order for this gasket, so I didn't show this part on the video. And I found it easier for myself to put the new gasket already on the motor, and I just try to fit it in. I noticed if I put the gasket on the cover, it would flop out because it didn't have anything holding onto it. So gravity plays its big role here. So be careful. Make sure the area where the spark plug hole goes to lines up pretty well. That's the most important place. You do not want an oil leak. So now just hand tighten those down, the bolts, and then just tighten them up. Make sure they go in evenly. Now we did the front side, same thing. Just properly align it until it sits in pretty well. And just go ahead and install your screws. Tighten them both down. See it go down pretty much the same time. And now I go ahead and install my coolant hose lines back in place. So I'm mentioning here for the thermostat how it's placed. The little hole is supposed to face the first big coolant line, but here is the gasket for the thermostat housing, and the part number. So if you need it, bam. I'd recommend you do this while you're already here, just in case you need to do it. I did notice I put the thermostat wrong. I'm not sure if it makes it much of a difference, but I faced the hole to the bigger side of the coolant line. It's the right way it should have gone. And now I'm just fitting it back into its housing so I can bolt it back down. Now I installed the the front coolant line. Make sure everything was tightened up properly. Don't forget your ground. And that also mounts up to the bracket. So that's pretty much it for this part of the video. I made a part 2 for the rest because I still need to install the valve cover breather vent and pretty much put back the coolant into the motorcycle. But thanks for watching, you guys. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Keep on watching.